Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author Clinton Galloway and filmmaker Alex Warren. Author Clinton Galloway was graduated from high school in Queens and went to Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. He's a licensed CPA and president of Galloway and Associates. Your book, Anatomy, Anatomy of a Hustle, is totally political as far as I can see. How did you come about to write it?
Well, we ended up in a political process, and as we got involved with cable television, we had to deal with the politicians downtown, and we found out how City Hall really works. It wasn't like they tell you in the books or in political science class in college.
I bet it wasn't. When you got out of college and you started to practice, were you headed in this kind of political field? Is that what you wanted to do?
Not at all. I was a CPA, and I was recruited by an international accounting firm in San Francisco where I worked.
Oh.
And then I came to Los Angeles. I was recruited by an investment banking firm here in Los Angeles. And my brother was the one who originally understood what cable meant for the future.
Your brother was a doctor?
Yes, he was. He was a doctor here in Los Angeles and in South Central Los Angeles. And he understood what cable could do to improve the quality of life for people.
Well, tell us just a little bit, because we're talking about Anatomy of a Hustle. We didn't go on to say cable comes to South Central LA,
Right.
which is what the whole idea of your book is.
Yes, it's about cable television, but it's really about the political process that goes on downtown when the average citizen goes down and brings an idea that you think you can improve your community, you think you're doing something good, and you find yourself being battled by those who you thought were supposed to be supporting your community.
I think that's one of the, did your brother see that also?
Yes, he did. He saw it firsthand, because I got involved after he did.
But he wanted to bring cable to South Central.
Absolutely.
And why would you want to bring cable to South Central?
He saw the power that cable was going to have. I didn't see it at first because I was surprised that people would pay to watch television, and I told him that. But he was my big brother, so I decided I would do what he told me, and he knew that the value of information and education, and he saw that cable would become the next newspaper.
But it had nothing to do with CPA, did it?
No.
Except that you could raise your money from there, couldn't you?
Well, I was in investment banking.
Right.
So I was with the Beverly Hills investment banking firm, and that was why I was able to raise the kind of money we would need, $40 million, to do this kind of project.
So you were able to come up with that money. So
Yes.
you were on that end, he was on the education end, and he
Yes.
was practicing down there, you
Yes,
said.
he was. He was practicing down there, and he knew a lot of doctors, and medical issues in South Central are very important because people don't get the information or the kind of care they need.
But we're talking about a book that's like, how much later is this? 20 years?
30 years.
30 years. Somebody would say, or it could be said, that you're sour grapes now because you missed out. Why would you write a book?
Well, it took us 14 years to go through the process. Between the legal process, the United States Supreme Court, and the district court here in Los Angeles held the case for 6.5 years, and we never got a trial. Shortly after the case was ended in 1992, my brother contracted leukemia, and I had a brain tumor.
Both of you got sick?
We both got sick in the same year. And beginning of 1994, he contracted leukemia, which he subsequently passed from, and I had a brain tumor which I needed immediate operation on. And so after that was about getting ourselves together again.
But it was about getting yourselves together, but was it already dead? Was your issue dead in South Central at that time?
Yes,
It was dead.
it was dead.
And then how did you go back? Because there are so many facts in this. I mean, I read it practically in one night because it was like, oh, I know these people. I can't believe this is happening. But how did you get all those facts straight?
Well, Because I was an accountant, I kept all the documents from 1979 through the end of this case. And we put them on the internet. So we have 10,000 pages of documents and 8 hours of hearings that we had before the city council and the various subcommittees. Because I thought it was important that people see the actual information, not merely take my word for it.
So your main thrust was for the minorities to have something in their area. That was the main thrust of what you wanted to do.
This was something that was available all over the country, and in the poorest area that needed it the most, where they had no education, and it was about economic development. When you can pump in $40 million into a community, it means a lot of jobs and a lot of changes.
So how are you going to do it? What were you going to do?
We had formed a joint venture with the company that built the Hollywood-Wilshire franchise. So we already had the technical expertise.
And that was from your company, where you were
correct.
working? I see.
No, this was from another company that we had met. My brother met.
That's what I mean. Oh, you met them.
Yes, and they were already building the Hollywood-Wilshire franchise.
I see.
Our franchise was directly next to them, so therefore we could use the same equipment and the same construction crews, and they had experience in the business. So it gave us the opportunity. We had the ability to raise money because my brother was a doctor and I was an investment banker.
And then you came up against big politics in City Hall.
That's exactly it.
Mayor Bradley was there then.
Mayor Bradley was there, and and it's not only the mayor, but it's the people who are friends of the mayor, because they came as using the mayor as their support to say that you have to give us part of your company. And
I want to say one thing. Are you afraid for exposing all these people for the way they are? Some of them are gone. Some of them aren't with us.
Some are still with us, and some of them are, we were warned when we got into this, we were warned by the FBI that there were some tough people involved on the other side.
That's what I was wondering.
And, again, I came from New York City, so I'm not really that afraid of most people. So.
I just got chills because I got scared talking about it, having you talk about it.
But it's
really,
my responsibility to do that. It's the responsibility of the citizen when the government gets out of line for the citizen to stand up and say there's something wrong here. And that's all we could do. The only way we had was to go and seek the protection of federal courts. But we didn't know that the federal judge was friends of the mayor's.
I was just going to say, probably you had a standstill at the federal courts, too.
Yes. When we filed the case was originally filed in 1983. She dismissed our case.
What was our judge's name?
Consuelo Marshall,
yeah.
who ultimately became the Chief Justice here in the District Court.
She just left the court, didn't she?
Yes, she did. And they had a nice thing about her civil rights record, and
Yes, and I went to it. I went to it. Okay. I went to when she stepped down and George King came in.
And she had just become a judge when she got our case.
And she was appointed, so she was newly appointed.
She was newly appointed by Jimmy Carter, and she was recommended by Tom Bradley, where she had worked for the city attorney's office and for Johnny Cochran.
Oh, she worked for Johnny Cochran,
yes,
too.
she worked for Johnny Cochran.
Another friend.
Another friend.
My daughter. Another friend of mine, because my daughter roomed with his daughter.
You know everybody. But that powerful clique downtown meant that, I knew 2 weeks before we filed the case that our case would end up in her court.
Oh, you did know that?
Yes, because I also
But it wasn't very long. 2 weeks isn't very much time, is it?
Well, I mean, it's to know in advance that someone's going to receive your case who you know is going to be against you. It's kind of a surprise. Because the person who told me she had offices with her husband.
Oh, so you knew.
I knew.
You knew.
And he told me what was going to happen. She was going to dismiss the case, and we had to appeal it. So we had to take it up to the United States Supreme Court to come back down and get a hearing. She refused to give us a trial. And there was nothing we could do since we were in federal court already. That was the protection. No civil rights organization stepped up for us at any point in time.
I want to go through these names.
Sure.
Because I want to go through a list of names because you named so many people. And then just give me a thumbnail because I don't want to miss out on this. We talked about Tom Bradley.
Right.
Okay, Johnny Cochran.
Yes, Johnny had basically, he was very tight with the mayor. The mayor had appointed him to the airport commission, and he was really the mover and shaker in town. And so Johnny was the one who said that we wouldn't do any business unless we gave part of our company to the friends of the mayor's.
Oh, so it came down to that. Maxine Waters, she was in that area.
Maxine Waters, we talked with Maxine. She said, regardless of the civil rights or the constitutional issues, this is a city issue and I'm not going to get involved.
Oh, because she was in Washington.
Right, she was in Washington. And she was actually an assemblywoman, but she recommended her husband, Sidney Williams, to come and be involved with us.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Who later became ambassador to?
Yes. But, we didn't want to be involved with politicians' friends and things like that because he didn't have anything to offer to us.
I see. Willie Brown, San Francisco, where you were living.
I mean, Willie Brown was one of the most powerful Democrats in the state. And this was all ended up being a very political situation because the concern of who will control the voting bloc of South Central and the black community became an issue.
And you didn't really mention too much about Willie, but I knew he was a part of this.
He wasn't that much involved with what we were doing because he was in Northern California.
Right.
We dealt with people who were based in Southern California, Mervyn Donnelly, Maxine Waters, Diane Watson. You know, those were the people at that level.
But the thing is, it's so interesting that you didn't get the support that you thought you would get.
Well, we didn't get any support out of any of the civil rights organizations, and we didn't get any support out of anyone other than ourselves.
So they didn't think that this was a humanitarian or civil rights issue, bringing education to South Central, where they were having crime and problems.
Which goes on today. But they were concerned about Mayor Bradley because he was running for governor in 1982.
Oh, right.
When this was all selected, he was running for governor. So they were trying to hush this up and keep it quiet so that no one would know what he was doing.
I see. So then we had Danny Bakewell. Oh, Danny, I'm sorry.
And Danny Bakewell was the head of the Brotherhood Crusade at that point.
And he wasn't
doing anything. I mean, these people didn't even understand what cable was, but they told us that unless we gave them 2/3, not 20% or 15%, 2/3 of the company, that we couldn't do business
And
here.
you brought it. And the other one that you mentioned so much was Channing Johnson.
Channing was working for the city. He was the deputy to Councilman Robert Farrell when we started this. He was working for the city and at the same time trying to get us to take a part of our company.
Yeah, that's...
We went to the DA and we went to the U.S. District, to the FBI, and Gil Garcetti was the head of the Political Crimes Division, and he refused to do anything, based upon the fact that Councilman Farrell and Channing Johnson would not talk to them. The records were clear. The record was clear as to what he did, and it was in violation of the law. But he simply refused to do anything. And that's where we were stuck.
So you just hit a blank wall.
Basically, we were against the city, the county, the state, and the federal government, and we had a U.S. District Court judge who refused to give us a trial.
And they're calling you those Galloway boys.
They hated us. I mean, come on, let's be honest, they just hated us. Because they didn't know who we were. They didn't know where we were from and how we would come up with so much money when they couldn't do it.
Oh,
and so they kept changing the rules. We had investment bankers. We even had the richest man in the world guarantee our money. Adnan Khashoggi at that point was the richest man in the world, and he sent a letter to the city guaranteeing $50 million worth of debt for us. But they wouldn't accept that. They said, we don't accept letters from Arabs and red Chinese. On the floor of the city council, this was said by Art Snyder.
Oh,
and you know what a person he was. I won't get into his character.
I didn't write his name down. I should have, because that's another one you can talk about.
He was.
I think this is this was like reading a gossip column to
well,
me.
Unfortunately, I had to live it, so it took a lot of time and a lot of money, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, and the city lost a lot of money. Why would the city spend millions of dollars to stop economic development in the poorest community in the city?
And why was it? Why do you think?
Because unless they wanted the money, unless they agreed, unless they're getting paid, unless they can get a percentage of what everybody's doing, they don't want to do it.
So does that continue today?
Yes, it does.
Everywhere?
Yes, it does.
But then this whole thing we're talking about ends up at K&B,
yes.
Kaufman and Broad,
because
who were builders.
Yes, they were in the real estate business. They had
right.
no interest in constructing anything, and they never did do anything in cable. But Eli Broad and Danny Bakewell were large contributors to the mayor's governor's campaign.
Oh, Danny Bakewell had money?
Yes.
Oh,
because he was the guy raising money through the Brotherhood Crusade, and he was helping.
So he was putting that money.
He was putting money into the governor's campaign, as was Eli Broad and Kaufman and Broad.
I see.
But they never did anything, so they held it for three more years, and nothing got done. And once again, South Central was stuck with no technology and no ability to improve their conditions.
And where are we today?
We're in the same situation. They have cable television, but the fact is they don't control the images that come to them because they don't control the distribution.
I see.
And one thing I'll say, Rupert Murdoch said, is if you want to control what goes on television, you need to own that part of that television.
And that's what he's done. He's controlled.
And that's what he's done. And so
right.
his vision is what you see on television.
Yeah.
The image that people in South Central have, and to improve their own community, is not there.
It's not the image that they should be seeing.
No. They don't create their own image. If you can't create your own image, are you truly free?
I see.
When others decide what you are and who you are.
Well, I think everyone has to read Anatomy of a Hustle.
I hope they'll take a look.
And talk about Clinton Galloway.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And don't go away. We'll be right back with filmmaker Alex Warren. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with writer, producer, director Alex Warren, who was born in Denver, raised in Stade, and then returned to the United States to graduate from high school in Houston and earned a degree in film at Rice University.